Today's book is Zog. Madam Dragon ran a school many moons ago. She taught young dragons all the things that dragons need to know. Zog, the biggest dragon, was the keenest one by far. He tried his hardest every day to win a golden star. All the dragons in year 1 were learning how to fly. "Hi," said Madam Dragon, "way up in the sky. Now that you've been shown, you can practice on your own, and you'll all be expert flyers by the time you're fully grown." Zog went off to practice, flying fast and free. He soared and swooped and looped the loop, then crashed into a tree. Just then a little girl came by. "Oh, please don't cry," she said. "Perhaps you'd like a nice sticky plaster for your head." "What a good idea," said Zog. Then up and off he flew, his plaster gleaming pinkly as he zigzagged through the blue. A year went by, and in year 2 the dragons learned to roar. "More," said Madam Dragon, "louder, I implore." Now that you've been shown, you can practice on your own, and you'll all be champion roarers by the time you're fully grown. Zog went off to practice. He roared with fearsome force. He kept it up for hours on end, but then his throat grew hoarse. Just then the girl came by again. She said, "What rotten luck! Perhaps you'd like a nice soothing peppermint to suck." "What a good idea," said Zog. Then up and off he flew, and breathing fumes of peppermint, he zigzagged through the blue. A year went by, and in year 3 the dragons learned to blow. "No," said Madam Dragon, "breathe out fire, not snow." Now that you've been shown, you can practice on your own, and you'll all be breathing bonfires by the time you're fully grown. Zog went off to practice. He blew with all his might. He twirled around in triumph, and his wingtip caught alight. Just then the girl came by again. She said, "You poor old thing, perhaps you'd like a nice stretchy bandage for your wing." "What a good idea," said Zog. Then up and off he flew, his bandage flapping wildly as he zigzagged through the blue. All the year 4 dragons were learning, can you guess? "Yes," said Madam Dragon, "how to capture a princess." Now that you've been shown, you can practice on your own. You'll need to capture hundreds by the time you're fully grown. Zog went off to practice. He tried and tried and tried, but he simply couldn't manage. "I'm no good at this," he cried. "I'll never win a golden star." Just then he saw the girl. "Perhaps," she said, "you'd like to capture me. I'm Princess Pearl." "What a good idea," said Zog. Then up and off they flew, the princess gripping tightly as they zigzagged through the blue. "Ah," said Madam Dragon, "our first princess so far. Congratulations, Zog, my dear, you've won a golden star." Zog was proud and happy, and Pearl felt good as well. She took the dragons' temperatures and nursed them when they fell. A year went by, and in year 5 the dragons learned to fight. "Right," said Madam Dragon, "here comes a real live knight." Up spoke the knight. "My name," he said, "is Gadabout the Great. I've come to rescue Princess Pearl. I hope I'm not too late." Zog breathed fire and beat his wings. "You can't! She's mine!" he roared. "Oh, no, she's not!" yelled Gadabout, and waved his trusty sword. The other dragons crowded round and watched them, all agog. Who was going to win the fight, Sir Gadabout or Zog? Then Princess Pearl stepped forward, crying, "Stop, you silly chumps! The world's already far too full of cuts and burns and bumps. Don't rescue me. I won't go back to being a princess and prancing round the palace in a silly frilly dress. I want to be a doctor and travel here and there, listening to people's chests and giving them my care." "Me too," exclaimed the knight, and took his helmet off his head. "I'd rather wear a nice twisty stethoscope," he said. "Perhaps, Princess, you'll train me up." And Pearl replied, "Of course, but I don't see how the 2 of us could fit upon your horse." Then Zog said, "Flying doctors, I'd love to join the crew. If you'll let me be your ambulance, then I can carry you." "Bravo," said Madam Dragon, "an excellent career." And all the year 5 dragons gave a loud resounding cheer. Then Madam Dragon told the horse, "I really hope you'll stay. I'll let you be my pupil's pet and feed you lots of hay." "What a good idea," said Zog. Then up and off he flew, the flying doctors waving as they zigzagged through the blue. Today's book is The Ant and the Grasshopper. It was a warm, sunny summer's day. There was a grasshopper in a field, and he was hopping about, chirping and singing very loudly. Every day he sang, danced, played music and ate to his heart's content. After a morning of singing and dancing, the grasshopper started to feel tired. He lay back on a leaf, dozing in the sun. On the ground, just beneath the sleeping grasshopper, an ant was hard at work. The ant's huffing and puffing awoke the grasshopper, who looked down from his comfy resting place to see what the noise was. "Why are you working so hard? You should be resting and enjoying yourself like me," the grasshopper said to the ant. "I have to work hard. I need to get all of my food stored and my nest ready for the winter," the ant replied. "But winter isn't for months," the grasshopper said. "Come and play with me." "I don't have time for playing," the ant said. "I have too much to do. You should start collecting food and preparing your home for winter." "I don't want to work or be inside on a beautiful day like this," replied the grasshopper. So the grasshopper kept playing. He sang songs and danced in the field. He slept in the sun and ate lots of food. The ant continued to work, storing food and making his nest warm and cosy for the winter. In no time at all, the sun disappeared and the weather turned cold. The field became covered in a layer of frosty white snow. Winter had arrived. The ant was prepared. While the snowflakes fell outside, the fire crackled inside his little nest. He had enough food to see him through the cold months ahead. The grasshopper searched for food but could not find any. He was very hungry. And he had no shelter from the falling snow and bitter winds. The grasshopper remembered the ant he had met in the summer. He knocked on his door and asked him if he had any spare food. "Why don't you have any food of your own?" asked the ant. "Did you not store any in the summer? What were you doing?" "I was so busy dancing and singing and eating, I didn't do any work at all," said the grasshopper. The grasshopper looked truly sorry and ashamed. He promised the ant he would work hard next summer and store his own food. So the ant gave him as much food as he could spare. It was just enough to see the grasshopper through the winter, but it was a miserable few months for him. Next summer, the grasshopper was as good as his word. He worked hard to store enough food for himself. The grasshopper even found time to help the ant to make up for his bad behaviour and thank him. So next winter, the grasshopper didn't go hungry. He had learned his lesson and now worked as well as played. There is a time for work and a time for play.
Welcome to another children's book read aloud. Today is Mr. Happy's Smiley Day from the Mr. Men range. Mr. Happy is a happy chap who smiles the whole day long. He smiles when things are going right and when they're going wrong. He smiles in the sunshine and he smiles in the rain. He smiles 100 times a day and then he smiles again. Dee. Welcome to Children's Books Read Aloud. Today it's Mr. Tickle's tickle time. Mr. Tickle likes to tickle things. He's naughty, as you can see. Once he even tickled a bird. Then he tickled a tree. He tickled all the Mr. Men, everyone that he knew. "Who can I tickle now?" he said. "I know. I'll tickle you." Tickle, 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 tickle.
Welcome to Children's Books Read Aloud. Today's book is The Teddy Bear's Great Expedition. Bears wanted, the notice read, for expedition to be led by Colonel Gruff, intrepid explorer, to find a wild bear, Ursus arctos, the ancestor of the teddy bear. Wear clothing suitable for all weathers. Bring camping gear and plenty of provisions. The expedition will leave Thursday next, sharp at 9 o'clock. Those wishing to take part, please sign below. The word was quickly spread around. Bears of all shapes and sizes, old and young, patched and bald, thin and stout, came to sign their names. On Thursday next, by 9 o'clock, there was a great gathering of bears, all suitably dressed and well equipped, with rucksacks, tents, ropes, compasses, binoculars, tins of bully beef, bars of chocolate and bottles of ginger beer. The Colonel called them all to order. "Right," he said, showing them a large map. "We will take a course 10 degrees north, northeast, southwest to this forest, which, in my experience, is the place to look for a large plantigrade mammal. Follow me and no fooling about. This is a serious expedition." All the bears fell in line, eager to start the great trek. They walked and walked and walked and walked. They reached the forest, and still they walked. "Please, sir, can't we rest?" "Please, sir, I'm hungry." But the smallest bear said, "Please, sir, we have passed that tree 3 times." "Ahem! I was just checking the lie of the land," said the Colonel. "Shh, what's that sound?" They could hear a rustling and a snuffling and a thumping. "It's a bear! A bear? Where?" "Hide! It's there!" But it wasn't a bear. Oh, look, it's bunny rabbits. That night they camped by a river. "In my experience," said the Colonel, "this is just the place where bears will come down in the night to drink. We must take it in turns to keep watch. You 5 will volunteer." "Oh, sir, all night, sir?" "Can we have extra rations, sir?" "I'm afraid of the dark, sir." But the smallest bear said, "Please, sir, shouldn't we camouflage the tents?" It was getting darker and darker when suddenly there was a squelching and a splashing and a snorting. What is that there? There is something huge in the river. "Quick, get a torch." "Ouch, my foot." "I know, it's a bear." But it wasn't a bear. It's a cow. The next day, the Colonel studied the horizon with his binoculars. "In my experience," he said, "bears live in caves on high ground." "That's a mountain, sir." "I don't like heights, sir." But the Colonel was off. "Follow me, no lagging. Remember, this is a serious expedition." Higher and higher they climbed. "I'm cold, sir." "I'm scared, sir." "I'm feeling sick, sir." But the smallest bear said, "Please, sir, shouldn't we be roped together?" "Just what I was going to say," said the Colonel. He roped them together, and they put on their gloves and scarves and set off again. Higher and higher they went. They came around a crag, and there in the snow were tracks. "Sir, here are tracks." "Where do they go?" "To a bear's lair." "It's there." "Oh no." But it wasn't a bear. It's an antelope. Coming down the mountain was faster and more fun than climbing up. "Behave yourselves," shouted the Colonel. Here we have elephant grass, and in my experience it is just the kind of place to find bears. "Or elephants," said the smallest bear. But the Colonel did not hear. He had disappeared into the tall grass, and all they could see was the top of his hat. With a sigh and a moan they followed him, trampling the grass down as they went. Suddenly they stopped in their tracks. What was that terrible noise? Was it a bark, or a howl, or a bray, or a growl? It could only be a bear. But it wasn't a bear. It was a donkey. They all flocked down. "I'm tired, sir." "Where else can we look, sir?" "Can't we go home, sir?" But the smallest bear, who was reading a book, said, "Please, sir, it says here that the British wild bear is extinct. It died out in the 11th century, so we are 900 years too late. The only place we will find a bear now is the zoo." "Just what I was going to suggest," said the Colonel. "Come on, I'll lead the way." They found the zoo, and there at last was a real live bear. It was large, with claws and a lot of hair, and looked rather bored. It peered at them with a kindly, inquiring expression. The Colonel coughed and said, "Hello," and explained why they had come. The bear seemed very pleased to meet them. And the smallest bear said, "Well, it has been a successful expedition after all." Today's book is What Small Rabbit Heard. Small Rabbit did not want to go for a walk. It's too cold, I'm too busy, and I'm too tired. It's not cold, it's fresh, said Big Rabbit. You're not busy, you're playing, and you are certainly not yet tired. Well, it's too windy, it won't be fun. Of course it will be fun, said Big Rabbit. Now off we go. Outside the wind howled. Small Rabbit began to hop and skip to keep himself warm. Big Rabbit wanted Small Rabbit to stay close. Try to keep up, she said, but Big Rabbit's words were lost in the howl of the wind. What Small Rabbit heard was, "Jump in the mud." So he did. The wind howled. It picked up a pile of leaves, and they danced past Small Rabbit. He began to chase them. Big Rabbit shivered and shouted, "Stay with me, please." Again her words were lost in the howl of the wind. What Small Rabbit heard was, "Roll in the leaves." So he did. Soon they came to Thistledown Field. "Yippee!" yelled Small Rabbit, pointing to the animals. Big Rabbit called to Small Rabbit as she tried to catch up. "I want you to wait." The wind howled. What Small Rabbit heard was, "Open the gate." So he did. Small Rabbit raced up the hill. It was getting colder and his coat flapped in the wind as he ran. Big Rabbit was still trying to close the gate, but she cried out, "Fasten your coat." The wind howled. What Small Rabbit heard was, "Ride on the goat." So he did, all the way to the top of the hill. Big Rabbit was worried that Small Rabbit might get blown off the top, and she shouted as loudly as she could, "Keep very still." But it was her words that were blown away. What Small Rabbit heard was, "Roll down the hill." So he did. Big Rabbit was quite out of puff, and she could think of only one way to catch up. She shouted as she rolled, "Wait for me!" The wind howled all around. What Small Rabbit heard was, "Climb the tree!" Small Rabbit swung from a branch. Suddenly he spotted his rabbit hole on the other side of the stream, and he started to hop home. A thought flashed through Big Rabbit's mind. She looked at how dirty Small Rabbit was. She thought of their lovely clean burrow. "Small Rabbit, don't go inside," she pleaded. The wind howled. Big Rabbit peeked cautiously into the burrow. She tiptoed in. It was quiet. Too quiet. Very slowly she opened the cupboard door. "Boo!" laughed Small Rabbit. "It took me ages to find somewhere to hide, but I did." Small Rabbit leapt into Big Rabbit's arms. "Windy walks are lots and lots of fun," he said, and Big Rabbit had to agree. Today's book is Wolf Girl by Jo Loring Fisher. Sophie watched the city from her window. Cars weaved and wound in endless spirals and twists, just like her worried tummy. The city was as gloomy and grey as she felt. But inside was her den. Sophie was always happiest there. She would put on her wolf suit and imagine she was fierce like a wolf, fast like a wolf, strong like a wolf, and maybe a little bit brave like a wolf. Sophie loved her wolf costume so much that she wished she could wear it to school. So one day she did. Sophie knew that everyone would like her and want to be her friend when they saw her special wolf suit. In the playground that day, Sophie plucked up the courage to talk to the other children, but her words got stuck in her throat, and her head and tummy felt funny. The other children whispered behind her back and laughed at her. Sophie ran back home and curled into a little ball. She hugged herself as hot, salty tears streamed down her cheeks. Then an extraordinary thing happened. Sophie felt an icy breeze on her face, and she began to shake all over. And suddenly, Sophie wasn't alone anymore. She had been joined by a wolf and her pup. And that wasn't all, because around her were the silent, snowy woods she knew from her books. Sophie ran and rolled with the pup. She pranced and howled just like a wolf. A huge smile spread across her face. She had made friends. But the wolves suddenly became still. Snow was starting to fall thick and fast. Feeling the biting wind, Sophie and the wolves headed for the woods. Deeper and deeper they went, becoming colder and more exhausted until, at last, they found a cave. They crouched together, trying to get warm as the snowstorm roared outside. But Sophie realised the roaring sound wasn't just coming from outside the cave. It was inside too. She looked up and saw an absolutely enormous bear. Sophie was terrified, but deep inside she felt a tingle and knew she had to be fierce, fast, strong, and most importantly, brave like a wolf. "Leave us alone, bear!" The bear ran from the cave and out into the stormy night. Sophie smiled. She felt brave, and it felt wonderful. The wolves howled their praise and licked and nuzzled at her face. But as a gust of snowy wind whistled through the cave, Sophie realised that the bear was cold and lonely outside. Maybe he had just been looking for a place to shelter, like them. He didn't look so big and scary anymore. Sophie knew what she must do. As Sophie walked outside, she realised that sometimes being kind was the bravest thing of all. As they all huddled together, Sophie realised that she felt quite different. She had friends, and she liked that feeling very much. An owl hooted softly outside, and Sophie fell fast asleep. Sophie opened her eyes and realised she was back in her den and alone once more. Had it all been a dream, she wondered sadly. But then she remembered that feeling of bravery and warmth and realised it was still inside her. She carried that feeling with her into school. She held on to it when someone asked her to join in. And this time her words didn't get stuck in her throat, and she replied in her quiet way, "Yes, please." Sophie carried her brave feeling inside all day, and later on Sophie spotted an owlish little boy, the one that no one ever noticed. They shared a shy smile, and Sophie knew she had made a friend. Welcome to Children's Books Read Aloud. Today we're reading We Completely Must Go to London, a Charlie and Lola book. I have this little sister Lola. She is small and very funny. Today, me and Lola are very excited because we're going on a school trip to London. Have you got everything ready for the trip, Lola? I say. Yes, Charlie. I completely must take some pink milk and a packed lunch and some money and my clicky camera. And I absolutely have to take Foxy. Foxy's got lots of friends in London, Charlie. When we get to London, Mrs. Hanson says we all have to walk in pairs and stay together so we don't get lost. I say, you must stay with me and Marv, Lola. London is very big. I know, Charlie. London is extremely huge, says Lola. And it's completely noisy, says Lotta. Bing bong. That's Big Ben chiming, I say. Lola says Big Ben makes a very strange sound. What's the matter with him? Big Ben is the name of the bell inside the clock, Lola. I didn't know bells had names, Charlie. Next we go to Buckingham Palace, where the Queen of England lives. Marv says, when the flag is flying, that means the Queen is in. I wonder which window is the Queen's bedroom, says Lola. I'm not sure, Lola. The guidebook says that there are 52 bedrooms. Lola says, does she keep her crowns and her jewellery in her bedroom? No, the Queen's most precious jewels are kept in the Tower of London. Mrs. Hanson says we're going to have a look at them next. When we get to the Tower of London, Lola says, what a sparkly crown. Why doesn't the Queen keep it at home and then she could wear it all the time? I say, kings and queens have always kept their jewels in the tower because it is a very safe place. Lola says, I wonder what olden day kings and queens actually looked like. We can see pictures of them here at the National Portrait Gallery. Lola says, I wonder what it would be like to be a real royal person, Lotta. Yes, 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 says Lotta. We would sit on thrones. Me and Charlie would be great kings, says Marv. We could live in huge castles and ride horses all day. We walk out of the gallery into Trafalgar Square. That is a very high up statue, Charlie, says Lola. That is Nelson's column. Nelson was a famous admiral in the Navy, and he sailed all over the world. He won the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. Lola says, I like sailing, Charlie. That's lucky, because we're taking a riverboat to a place called Greenwich. I like this river, says Lola. What's it called? It's called the Thames, says Marv, and it goes right through the middle of London. In the past, people used riverboats to move things across the city. There were no lorries then, so even bread and milk went on the boats. Lola says, what about pink milk, Charlie? I say, I'm not sure they drank pink milk in the olden days, Lola. When we get to Greenwich, Marv says, can we look in the Royal Observatory? I've heard it's famous. Yes, but what is an observatory, says Lola. It's where people look into space. They see everything through a giant telescope, I say. And this is the planetarium, says Marv. It shows all the stars and planets that are in the night sky. Lola says we should visit the moon, Lotta. Yes, says Lotta, we could go there on holiday. I say, come on, Lola, it's time to see the dinosaurs. The dinosaur bones are kept at the Natural History Museum. Me and Marv can't wait. I say, Marv, did you know the Stegosaurus had armour plates on its back? Marv says, and Charlie, did you know that the Diplodocus was as long as 2 buses put together? Quick, Marv, the Tyrannosaurus Rex is coming, I say. Oh no, says Marv. Let's escape on the pterodactyl's back. He'll never catch us now, I say. Rah! Suddenly, me and Marv look round and we can't see Lola or Lotta anywhere. Lola! Lotta! Oh no, where have they gone, says Marv. And I say, I don't know. We look, and at last we find them, in the gift shop. I say, oh, there you are, Lotta. You weren't meant to wander off. Lola says, but we didn't wander off. We were with Mrs. Hanson the whole time. I think maybe you and Marv got lost. Oh, I say, I think we did. Look, we've bought postcards, says Lotta. The last thing we all do is go to Lola's most favourite place of all. It's the biggest and most best wheel. It's called the London Eye because you can see every single thing when you're up there, says Lola. Yes, 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 says Lotta. I can see completely everywhere from up here, every single place we have ever been to. And I can see even more things to visit, says Lola. We absolutely must come back to London, extremely soon. Welcome to Children's Books Read Aloud. Today we're reading Alan's Big Scary Teeth. Alan came from a long line of very scary alligators. He was known throughout the jungle for his scaring. It was simply what he did best. Alan would start each day polishing his scales, sharpening his nails, and brushing each of his big scary teeth for at least 10 minutes at a time. And after practicing his frightening faces in the mirror, he'd sneak into the jungle for his morning round of scaring. Alan went snap, snap, and grrr, grrr. He said things like, I'm big, scary Alan, fear my razor-sharp teeth. He made the frogs leap off their lily pads, the monkeys tumble from the trees, and the parrots screech in terrible terror. Bah, ha, ha, I love being scary, laughed Alan. After a long day of scaring the jungle animals, Alan would head back home to the swamp, relax, finish the crossword in the Jungle Times, and take out his false teeth. Nobody knew about Alan's false teeth. Good night, teeth. Sweet dreams, my scary snappers, Alan would say as he put them away carefully in his super secret hiding place. One morning, Barry the Beaver was up early collecting wood and came across a dozing Alan. Terrified that Alan might wake up and gobble him whole, he quickly dived behind a bush. Phew, that was close, thought Barry, just as a set of false teeth fell out of a bush with a very familiar snap, snap. When Alan awoke, his teeth were gone. My teeth! My teeth! Where are my teeth? What could he do? Maybe no one would notice. Could he still be scary without them? He decided to head into the jungle as usual. He made the frogs leap off their lily pads, the monkeys tumble from the trees, and the parrots screech with laughter. Alan just wasn't very scary without his teeth. Alan slunk back to the swamp. He had never been more embarrassed. He came from a long line of very scary alligators. Scaring was all he had ever known. What would Alan do now? Poor Alan began to cry. Just a bit at first, but then the tears kept coming. He howled and yowled more than all the jungle babies put together, and he could not stop crying until... Next morning, all the animals turned up at Alan's swamp with his big, scary teeth. "We'll give you back your teeth," said Frog. "Really?" said Alan. "On one condition," said Parrot. "You have to stop scaring us." "But what will I do? I don't know how to do anything else." "We have an idea," said Frog. And so every day, after polishing his scales, sharpening his nails, and brushing his big, scary teeth, Alan headed into the jungle and became Alan the gardener, Alan the hairdresser, and Alan the dentist. But every night he became Alan the big, scary storyteller, thrilling the jungle animals with his terrifying tales. "Bwah ha ha ha! I love being scary," laughed Alan.